Welcome to the Elevating Leaders series, where we go beyond the headlines and straight to the people who are redefining insurtech and business transformation. We've caught up with the visionaries and the pioneers that are currently driving the industry forward, bringing you exclusive insights, strategies, and stories you won't hear anywhere else. If you're ready to go deeper, this is your front row seat to the future of insurance. I'm Miguel Edwards, and this is 5 Minutes. One of the things, Jackie, that I struggled with on my leadership journey, I still struggle with on my leadership journey is, the higher you go up the ladder, the harder it is to maintain self-awareness because there are fewer people who are willing to be real with you, right? I mean, it's like, that free advice, it stops coming at some point, right? How did you deal with that in your career as you were climbing the ladder? How did you make sure that you were surrounding yourself always with that self-awareness as a leader? Yeah,
I realized very early on, and it's a gift that you can give yourself. Two things. One is perfect is a trap. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yeah.
And two, never assume you're the smartest person in the room. I am never going to be the smartest person in the room. In the early days, I felt bad because I had a liberal arts degree and everybody else was like a business degree, whatever. Then I realized the value that it brought. I was a better communicator. I looked at things from a much more individualistic human set of lenses that others might not have. And so instead of feeling like I was less, I felt like I bring something unique here. And so that for me was such a thing that, and I was willing to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And if people said, I don't think that's a good idea, instead of saying, well, you're wrong, I'm right.
Right.
I would say, tell me why that is. Or if I saw that look on their face where they were like, I would be like,
tell me more.
Talk to me. I don't have to be right. There's a lot of ways to get to the right answer. Mine might be one of them, but yours might be one too, and it might work better.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I was going through your background, Jackie, and you've got, you seem to be responsible for an incredible amount of transformation and organizational change. Think about those leadership moments. How did you lead organizations through transformation, through massive change? How do you do that?
Yeah, the first thing you have to realize is that people are afraid. They might logically know that the change needs to take place, but a lot of people are afraid to make a bad choice, a bad decision, to take a risk. And because, rightfully so, they may have seen people punished for that before.
Sure.
But you have to create a safe place for them. I've always said to people, if you make a mistake and you did it with good thoughts, or it wasn't malicious, or you didn't do it to be subversive to someone,
sure,
I'm always going to fly cover for you.
Right.
Don't make that same one again, especially if it has a financial impact. But it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay that it didn't work out perfect. And sometimes that's where you get your greatest learnings. I learned early on, I made assumptions about what I thought I could make my customer do, and I got fed humble pie real fast.
Right.
And so it's okay about that. And I've always said, the kind of leader I wanted to be was I always fly cover when something goes wrong, and I always take the back and put you up front when things are going well. This worked. Well, Rich did that, or, Rob did that. And I was just there to support them. I would never use the word I. I'm not anybody, but we did this, or they did this. And you reinforce, that was a really hard decision you made. That was a really hard thing you had to do. Even if it was counseling people.
Sure.
People don't like to deal with conflict. And I think that's one of the things for me. I was never afraid of dealing with conflict, good or bad conflict.
Sure.
And you just have to, you have to lead by example.
100%. I love that. What occurs to me, Jackie, is there are people to whom leadership comes somewhat naturally. And there are some people who find themselves in leadership positions for interesting reasons. How do you coach and how do you bridge the gap? Because I know that in my past and even now, even in my present, I've got folks that are technically capable. They're super smart, strong at what they do. And by virtue of where they are at their level, they have to lead. They have to, maybe not even necessarily titularly, but at least in terms of what they're doing. How do you coach people to whom leadership does not come naturally to be servant leaders, if that's possible?
Yeah, there's a couple of things about that. One of the things that I learned really early on is a lot of people went into management because it was the only way to make more money.
Right.
And so one of the things I've always done at every company I've been at is create career paths where you could reach a senior level.
Got it.
And be an individual contributor. Contributing in a leadership way, but not having to manage people.
Right.
Some people just don't like to do that. And then they can be servant leaders by giving back to the community.
Got it.
But I think with folks, what you have to do is when you see the behavior that reinforces servant leadership for those who are meant to manage. And there are people who naturally come by it. Of course, I was bossy when I was younger. That's a leader now. But I think for those folks is reinforcing. You saw something they did that was very much like you want them to be a servant leader, to always put others first, reinforcing that with them. And if you see them step out and take credit for somebody else's work, or you see them do something that isn't what you really think they want for themselves, because they have to learn along the way, it's pulling them aside and say, this is what I observed. Did you recognize that? And most times, 9 times out of 10, they were like, oh my gosh.
Thank you for joining this episode of 5 Minutes. If you've enjoyed our discussion, we'd love for you to share it with anyone else you think might find it interesting. Also, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on and hit that bell to stay on top of the game with our practical 5-minute episodes. We look forward to seeing you again next week.